What's up, YouTube? So today I want to talk to you about a little something I stumbled across a couple months ago. That's right, just a couple months ago. So I was on YouTube, and during my free time what I like to do was play video games. And usually I was very annoyed by the audio in these games. So I play video games on my computer, and usually I would either mute the music and sound effects, and I would either play music or I would listen to audio programs on dating advice, because there's plenty of free content and some paid content that I found very informative. And then I stumbled across it. I decided why, well, it wasn't why, it was, hey, there's other stuff I can listen to. And I can't remember exactly how, but maybe it was maybe it was because I searched how to get rich on YouTube or something similar, and I came across just this list of audiobooks and so forth with very intriguing titles that I found very interesting. And it just reminded me of a saying that the actor Will Smith said, and it went something along the lines of, again, I learned this quote from an interview that I saw on YouTube from him. He said that everything you want to do or achieve, someone has written a book about it and has written in that book how to achieve that. And I do think there's obviously some gaps and holes, and maybe not everything has a book that tells you how to achieve it, but you can be sure as hell, confident and sure that there's a lot of stuff that has been written that tells you to be certain things and do certain things, and all you have to do is read that book and gather that information. And I found a little bit of a secret, and that's the whole idea that I don't have to even read these books literally. I can, with these YouTube audiobooks, I can read these things. I can read these things without reading. All I have to do is listen intently. And from then on, I listened to quite a few audiobooks on a lot of stuff, mainly on how to be a millionaire and so forth. And these were free content books. And then I soon found out that if I really wanted to get this knowledge, I had to listen intently. So occasionally I would alt tab out of my game and rewind the audiobook to listen to the last 2 minutes again, because I really wanted to get it down. And over time I found a lot of the concepts were reoccurring in completely different independent books that had nothing to do with each other. I found very similar concepts being expressed. And also I found, okay, YouTube has a limited amount. Unless I search specific things, some of these audiobooks, I mean, people have to sort of create them, and that's not easy. So I started branching out, and I started buying some. And I mean, I realized that a lot of this content is free for you, and the library probably has a lot of it too. So for me, I've bought a lot of it, but I also realized that I could just go to a library and get the same thing. And they probably don't have MP3 downloads off the internet, but you could probably get the CD and then burn it to your laptop and do the same thing. So for the longest time, I would just listen to this stuff while playing video games. And then I started branching out. I realized this is so easy. It's I don't have to do anything. And I realized how much time I was wasting every day just waiting in line for food or walking about campus. and I put it on my iPod and I just started listening to this while I was just doing nothing, and I couldn't do anything anyways. You know how much time people waste every day just waiting in line? Like they probably waste up to an hour at my school, like 20 minutes each meal, 30 minutes each meal because of the lines, and 90% of them just sit there. The other 10% play on their phones. So I'm sitting there listening to this very intensive, awesome content that's free to me in these small spans of time, telling me how to become a millionaire and so forth. And quite honestly, I found a lot of reoccurring themes, and I'm going to briefly express a few of these. And so you guys don't have to read, well, you probably do, but these are probably some of the biggest themes that I found the most enticing. And I'm not going to tell you all of them, because otherwise this video would be like 2 hours long. But I may make another video telling you more, and I mean, this is just a brief overview on the journey I've gone through. But it's just amazing. Like I just found it very cool how I just be like walking along my floor in my dormitory, and I'd see all these people wasting time, and I'm gaining this valuable information for free, and it's just so enticing. It's like I got all this information, this secret information, and you guys are wasting your time. Anyhow, I guess the one biggest thing that I learned from a lot of these books, the ones I recommend are The Millionaire Next Door and The Millionaire Mind, which turns out to be a seminar, but you can get the whole seminar for free. Also, there's another one, I forgot the name. And then there's also Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That's another one I recommend. These also correlate a lot to the mindsets. A lot of people who are rich and poor, which I learned specifically from Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and from the interview with the author Robert Kiyosaki, which he did on, I believe it was Oprah, where he just expressed how rich people and poor people have different mentalities, and these mentalities attribute to different behaviors and how they look at, treat, view money, which completely change how they spend money, which causes, in a lot of ways, the rich to get richer and the poor to get poorer. And the biggest reoccurring theme I found was that not just through books, but through the things I watch. I also started watching Shark Tank, which is like a business venture cap. It's basically a TV show on ABC where really rich people choose where to invest their money. Why do they do this? Well, I watch a lot of these episodes, and it's just pouring with information sometimes. These millionaires that are on the show, they're just giving free advice each time they reject someone they don't want to invest in, or a new company they don't want to bother with. They just give free advice, telling you why they think the way they do, what they think about their money, and so forth. And it's just a reoccurring theme. Kevin O'Leary from the show expressed it best. He said something along the lines of how he thought of money as soldiers. Every day they go out and bring prisoners back, and so every day he ends up with more, and then the next day he has a larger army to go out and bring in more prisoners. And that's one of the mindsets a lot of rich people have that poor people don't. Rich people take their money and use it to make more money. Poor people take their money and they spend it all. They spend it all, and that's all they can think of how money works. I can only use money to spend it to create more things. And another reoccurring theme, this is the second and only one I'm giving you, because if you really want success, it's so retarded how the library has so much information. Like, quite frankly, if you really wanted to, if you read every book in the library and understood it, you'd probably be the most wisest person ever. You probably know how to be rich. You probably know how to get girls. You probably know how to handle your finances. You'd probably know more about science, the world, math, physics, the universe than probably 90% of the people alive. And the point is that the library has all this information on everything you need. But the true nature of most people, not all people, thankfully, but it is that they find a library and books and all this stuff boring. And they rather do stuff that sort of just helps them feel happy in the short term. Drugs, alcohol, video games, and so forth. Anyhow, the second reoccurring theme, and the reason I'm only giving you guys two is you guys have to go out there and actually do what I said. I'm giving you free information, free advice that can potentially completely transform your life in the long term. And I'd definitely recommend starting with at least one audiobook or one I personally would start with one audiobook on one of the books I recommended, just for free. I mean, you can find the stuff for free online, and just go from there. And so the second reoccurring theme I found was that a lot of rich people start out very poor, and they work their way up. I highly recommend The Millionaire Next Door. And what I found was that a lot of people have gotten rich, but what it takes is time, compound interest, and reducing your expenses, and realizing that you can make a lot from very little. And the biggest thing is that once you get out of college, what you'll find is that people just spend every cent that they earn, and they don't save. But the more you save, like, and the less you cut down on expenses, you'll really... Sorry, the thing dropped. Let me check if it's not, like, if it's still recording. Okay, it is. What you'll learn is that you, like, once you read this book or listen to the audio book, you'll learn that, hey, I don't need to spend $100,000 every year to maintain a good lifestyle. In fact, a lot of that money you're spending is frivolous and useless. And so what you'll find is that they're cutting down on their expenses per year. They're spending only $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 per year on their entire lifestyle. And with the rest of that money, they're saving it. And they're employing that money to compound. And the beauty of compound interest is that over time it accumulates rapidly. And if you leave this for a long time, and again, that's another recurring theme. If you look at the long-term aspect of it, and you're constantly saving it and compounding it, not just with the savings account, but larger forms of return, and in different ways, either through a business where you can, if you employ a business, you can escape high income tax, and so forth. That money will give larger returns every year at a higher percentage rate, which will compound over time to create a lot of money. And the second biggest thing is that what you'll find is that a lot of millionaires are business owners. They understand how it works. Entrepreneurs. Not all of them, of course. But another thing is that a lot of people who have amassed a lot of money, they've done so, and some of them have done so with very little pay every year. And how have they done so? They cut down their expenses every year, and they save their money. And I think the biggest thing is, if you want to do it this way, first off, congrats, because most people don't. They spend all their money. And what you'll find is, if you do the math, it won't be a huge amount, but sometimes over the long term it can be. There's this one story in The Millionaire Next Door where there's two people, both of them, and this is a real life example, both of them had the same job, they had almost the same pay, and one saved a portion of their money every year through their 401k retirement plan. The other did not. And the biggest thing I found was that the person who saved that amount that she cut away and saved, it detracted nothing from her lifestyle every year. Her lifestyle and how she lived and everything was the same, despite her cutting away a good percentage for savings. Her other friend, who lived the same lifestyle, maybe a little more frivolously, spent a little extra, but had the same job, the same amount of income, well, she didn't save at all until very late, when she was like 50. Then she started pouring away a large chunk of her money to her 401 retirement plan, because she realized, oh crap, I'm going to retire and then I'm going to be stuck with $0 to spend, because that's the pitfall of retirement. You have to look to maybe your own savings to spend for the next 10-20 years when you can't generate an income because you're too old. So you're going to be alive for 10, maybe 20 years of retirement, and if you're living a lifestyle that costs like 30 to 40 or 50 or $100,000 in expenses, that's going to be like $1 million over 10 years. So if you don't have that saved up for retirement, you're going to be screwed in certain ways. Or you're going to have to cut down on expenses whether you like it or not. So this second girl, she started putting away tremendous amounts at the age of 50. And then at the age of around like 70, both of these girls compared with themselves, and the girl who had started earlier through the powers of time length and the powers of compound interest, she was able to retire. And then the girl who had started late but was now putting in tremendous amounts of money, far greater than the amount that the first girl was putting away every year, but who had started earlier, she realized she still couldn't retire until like 70 or something, given her current rate, and it was very sad. So this is just one thing. And another book I read, I can't remember the name of it, but if I can remember, I'll put it in the description. It was noted that the author was a financial advisor, and he stumbled across this one family, and it seemed like they were rich at first. They paid off a boat, they paid off a house, a second house, a summer house, cars, their kids' college expenses, and then he realized that they had incomes of like very little, like $40,000 per year or something like that, and he was like entranced. He was like what's the word? Enthralled or intrigued by how they managed this, and apparently it came down to savings, cutting expenses, living right, and saving for a long term. And some of you guys out there might be like, really, I have to cut down on my expenses, live like a homeless guy so I can save for the long run, so I have to suffer for years before I can make it as a millionaire. I think the biggest lesson and the biggest mindset change came from me, from an article I recently read, and it basically taught me that you really don't need that much money anyways to live a happy lifestyle. And this was an article I briefly mentioned in another video, but basically this guy, he was like a finance major, and he was rich. And one day when he was on his boat drinking wine and discussing very deep philosophical things about the world, hunger, and so forth, on his boat with his friend drinking wine, he came to the conclusion over time that maybe I don't need all this stuff, and he sold everything. Now, I found it kind of suspicious how the article didn't really mention like I guess for certain reasons it didn't really mention why, like like how much he made, or like, or exactly how rich he was. But the point is, um, he sold away all his stuff, his house, his boats, everything, and now he lives off the grid, which means without electricity and without water. And he gets all his food from sustainable resources, and his whole lifestyle is based on zero money. He earns $0, and pretty much he lives in like a sustainable sort of place. He gets a lot of food from scrap food and junk food and trash food, and he farms a lot. I think he's like vegetarian now, but he says that his life is so much happier. He's making $0 per year. He sold everything and just put it away, and he says like a lot of the stuff he was doing before he does in different ways. Like exercising is a good example. Rather than paying to go to the gym, he bikes for a few dozen miles to the nearest city or town, on a regular basis to get certain necessary things that he can't get otherwise. I guess like jugs, or I don't know, some type of food, I don't know. But for the most part, he lives off the grid with like zero expenditures, and it's a sustainable environment. And he says that he feels happier than he did before, when he had to every day he had to sit through traffic and all these cars honking their horns, and he feels his life is much better, and all these horrible things about his past life were gone, and he was happier because he found a lot more real friends in this small community. And yeah, I think I did do another video on this, and I think in that other video I left a link to the article. I don't know if I could do that myself, honestly, but it's definitely something to think about. It's something to wow about. And really, if you have too big an appetite, then you'll never be satisfied. I definitely think there's people out there who spend $100,000 a year, and they're constantly looking to someone better than them, and so those type of people will never be satisfied. They'll achieve $200,000 per year and spend it all in that year, and the thing is, they'll want more. They'll never be satisfied. And for me, I look to that sort of article, and I'm like, wow, if this guy can make it and be happy and do all this stuff, and apparently he has like there's a huge community that does the same sort of thing. He works at like a local sustainable food thing now for free, and he said he's made more real friends than he did before, and he actually has a great lifestyle now, much healthier lifestyle, one filled without fast food and so forth. And I don't know if I could do that myself, but I know that you can definitely be sated in a lot of ways without constantly wanting more. And like, even with like $30,000, $40,000, or $50,000 expenditures per year, that can be enough for a lot of people. One final last point before I leave you guys. As always, remember, like, favorite, comment, and subscribe if you want more. One last final point before I leave you guys. I can't remember who responded this to me. I think it was either my dad or my roommate or another friend. And I mentioned one of these lessons I learned. Oh, another book you guys should take a look at is Richest Man in Babylon. It's very dense, and a lot of times it gets really boring, but it's also very old, so it's written in like it's written in the way the Bible's written in. But regardless, it's another good book, and it has a lot of reoccurring themes as well that help solidify, and also a lot of new things that you haven't really thought about or thought in certain ways about. But it's amazing because this book was written God knows how long ago, and yet these the hidden truths and lessons in it are crazy. Anyhow, I can't remember who responded this to me, but I mentioned one of the truths about how these people were spending all their money that they earned, $100,000 per year. They spent it all in that year, and they were saving none of it. And I'm pretty sure it was one of my friends. He responded, "There's nothing wrong with that." And at the time, I guess I was being nice, so I was like, "Yeah, I guess you're right. If you can afford to spend it, as long as you're not in debt," which is another problem. A lot of people rack up on credit card debt. But looking back, I felt that's a horrible mentality to have. If you say there's nothing wrong with that, then you're probably going to practice it the same way. You're going to spend all your money in that year. Whereas I do feel that people who they set apart a small sum every year, let it compound, employ it to certain cash flow methods that allow for passive income, or methods where you can just achieve annual returns every single year, that money will grow exponentially, compounding, and over a long span of time, especially if you employ it well. I mean, there's many ways: real estate, rental, businesses, certain funds, index funds, mutual funds. If you do your research, there's annual returns that can grow your money tremendously. And that money you set aside, it might not detract anything from your lifestyle. And over time, you're gonna see a huge difference from the guy who, in his 20s, spent all his time just blowing away all his money, and the guy who set a little bit aside and allowed that to grow. That's all I gotta say. As always, like, favorite, comment, and subscribe. See you guys later.